If a scout was to forget all of their knots and all of the merit badge requirements and all of the requirements they needed for different ranks in scouting, what would be the skill they would retain 20 years after leaving Scouts? Hey, ScouterStan, let's talk about that. That's the thing about scouting. We have so many different skills. We do so many activities, and therefore we do a lot of different learning abilities, like knot tying and requirements for different ranks and different merit badge. If all of that goes away, what do we retain? This is the big question. A lot of scout leaders need to be thinking about the big picture. And that's what this is about. Leading without a title. This is something that in scouting we do instinctively. A leader is going to lead. This is a huge thing. We'll get more into that leadership, but leadership is the one thing that they take with them when they move on from scouting. That's something they've learned, and now they can use it. That's a skill. That's a very, very huge skill that we're teaching. And as adult leaders, we do that day in, day out. This is something that, as we are leadership, that's something we want to do. That's something we need to do. A leader is going to lead. And that's you. You are that leader. And that's the wonderful thing. In scouting, young people actually inspire their peers. Believe it or not, they inspire them positively and negatively. I don't want to do what that one did. So that's the thing. In scouting, it's a safe place to fail. It's safe, okay? You can recover. That's the wonderful thing. And with scouting involved in young people's lives, it gives them those skills. It gives young people the ability, the opportunity to actually build consensus within their peer group. That is huge. It is so amazing how many young people can't do that outside of scouting. Scouting, it's inherent. It's part of what we do. Okay? They can actually perform. Okay? Yes, they're going to go through the phases. Okay? They're going to go through those phases, but they can get that consensus. In scouting, they also have the ability to take the incentive, to really use what they want towards a goal. And that is so critical. So many people, young people, don't have that opportunity. They don't get it. It doesn't come from school. It doesn't come from a lot of things. But if they learn it when they're young, they can use that as a very important skill towards leadership. And that, by itself, actually is the example. That's what every scout in the troop wants to be. Communication skills. This is something that is the most valuable of all of the requirements for the work world. In order to do just about anything, you need to be able to communicate. And that comes in with scouting. Everywhere else in school, they want you just to repeat what you've been taught. In scouting, we want you to use a lot of skills to actually be able to communicate with your peers and with older people too, like adults. It is true that public speaking is one of those things that a lot of people have a severe phobia or fear of doing. And this is something that in scouting, even in Cub Scouting, I've seen Cub Scouts come in who could not make eye contact with an adult. And then just a week later, they're dancing around on the stage with a puppet, okay? It's amazing, okay? Public speaking is a learned skill, communications. And it's something that a lot of scouts do that's a very sellable skill when you're dealing with the work world. In addition to that, being able to teach a skill using the EDGE method or something of that nature, to being able to break it down into pieces so that it can be understood and so that it can be absorbed and can be emulated and done, as far as a teaching of a skill. That's a very sellable thing in the future with somebody that forgets all their knots, okay? They can actually use those skills to really perform incredibly well. Being a person who's very able to do communications, that goes along with active listening, being able to repeat what the other person is saying. And if they have an issue, all the emotions are being removed so that you're really just focusing on the key words and not getting upset. And that's great for resolving conflicts and things. And that happens. So it's an important skill to keep in mind. Now with that, we have a video that talks a lot about delegation. How to take that communication, that active listening and problem solving and conflict issues and so on. But being able to take that and being able to delegate. It's a skill. And this is something we teach in scouting. So definitely check out the video, and it talks about delegating tasks. It's not bossing people around. It's telling them that they need a certain task. It could be small, it could be big. So it's all a part of learning delegation. Now within scouting, we teach young people how to run a meeting. That is a huge skill. There are so many Fortune 500 companies out there who couldn't run a meeting. Just can't. They don't have the skill sets. And that's the beautiful thing. In scouting, running a meeting of your peers, being able to do that, is something that we do day in and day out all the time. Problem solving under pressure. This is a skill that through the adventure task, they want to do that adventure, there's a lot of times when your youth leadership under pressure, you got a campfire and something happened. So it is something under pressure. It could be small. It doesn't have to be, it never would be safety threatening, okay? Because safety is something that we do. We prevent any problems in that regard. But under that pressure of getting things done, that's something that scouts really take on and are able to use skills that they've learned to really perform. This could be bad weather, like for instance, you had a rainstorm coming in and your campfire, you wanted to put it together. What are you going to do? Are you moving to the pavilion? Are you going to come up with something there? Or are you just going to call it off? What? Problem solving under pressure. There could be equipment failure. It could be as simple as your camp stoves don't work because somebody forgot the hose that connects the gas. That gas hose isn't there. Okay, what are you going to do? That's a big full stop to making dinner. Okay, and that's a problem that needs to be solved. Last minute changes. This happens all the time. For instance, you're at the camporee and they've just announced that they want everyone to circle up around the flagpole 2 hours early because they're going to move the schedule up. Well, you have people that are off in the woods, and you have another bunch that's gone off to the bathroom. It's scattered. Okay, so then you got cat herding going on. So that's a problem. So you got to think on your feet. You got to be able to do those things. It happens. These fun things. The schedule could change on you. There can also be conflicts within the patrol. So that's something that happens a lot. And that conflict needs to be handled, and that communication skill needs to be used, and active listening and deleting out all of the emotions so that you can handle the issue. That's the key. If you can do that, that's a great skill to have, especially in the future. No matter where you go in scouting, those things don't change. Those issues still come up. Team building. This is huge. A team is usually put together. Patrol is a good example. A team of people doing a task towards a common goal. That is so common in non-scouting world. That's the thing. In the future, the near future, for that young scout, they're going to be going off into the work world, and having the ability to work and build that team with different skills, and being able to take those skills and really achieve. That is a very big deal in the work world outside of scouting. And we do it all the time in scouting. We learn youth-wise how to do that. It's a big thing. And a lot of that starts with delegation. Being able to delegate different tasks to different people. In a patrol, you might delegate the very artistic scouts to build a flag, to be able to design a logo. Okay, that's something they can do. So that's how you delegate. You split it out. You might have somebody that knows everything about flag ceremonies. You make that your honor guard. That's the person that patrol becomes the honor guard. That's the one you want calling the flags. Okay, that's a huge thing. So these are skills that being able to delegate to others, that a lot of scouts will take with them into the future. So very important skills. Cooperation. That's another skill. Believe it or not, that's a skill. It's the ability of putting yourself and your own ideas aside and being able to cooperate with somebody towards a goal. That's huge. That's a skill. It happens in scouting, and it's required and needed heavily in the work world. So no matter what you're doing, you're going to have that ability. Trust building. When you're in a team, trust building is huge. They can rely on you to get a task done. It's not outside your capability, okay? And they can rely on you. That trustworthiness is there. They can rely on it to get it done. And you're the kind of scout that does it, and the future employee that does it. So this is a skill. These are very vital skills that we teach in scouting that are used into their future. Now, from that, you're going to have different personalities, okay? And we know, as adults, as adult leaders, we know that this is never always very easy, okay? There's always somebody that has different goals than what the rest of the team has. And you have to be able to work with that and be able to accommodate those desires. So that's the whole thing. As long as it's not putting anything in jeopardy in scouting, we're good. But as far as being able to be friendly and courteous and kind to others, that's part of who we are as scouts. And we want that to really get in there and be a part of that scout throughout their lives. No matter how long ago they were a scout, we want that to stay. Responsibility and accountability is something that scouting has in it. It is part of what we do. We live by the core values. And in the Scout Law, we have trustworthiness. And this is something where you can be trusted to get something done. So that's an incredibly important thing. And like I've always said, we're building a better America one Scout at a time. Through those core values is where that starts. That's where it begins. And from that, you get all the other things that go with that. And that can be as simple as owning a mistake. You made a mistake, you didn't get it in on time, or it was not something you could do, and you made a mistake. Owning it. Be not trying to blame everybody else and have every excuse in the world. Scouts learn from their mistakes, okay? And from that, they learn that owning that gives them the ability to recover. Okay, if you're going to blame everybody, they don't want to work with you. Your trustworthy is gone, okay? And that's true in scouting. That's true in the work world too. So it's critical to understand that that is a skill. That is something we teach in scouting. From that trustworthiness, follow through, being able to get it done and complete it, okay? That is the key, is being able to do that. That happens a lot in our scouting. When they're working on something and they got it done, they put the period at the end. It's a follow through, and they're able to hand that over to the next scout or the next employee that they're working with, okay, in the future. Being able to manage their time. This is something that a lot of employers are looking for in employees, to be able to do the task in a very specific time. And they're able to break it down into small tasks. You know, prioritizing those tasks so that time is kept in mind and everything falls in line correctly. And that's true in a troop, and it's true in every job that's out there for their future. Many employers actually put dependability as one of the major traits that comes out and that they absolutely need. They can depend on them to do the work on time. They can depend on them to do it economically, so that the company is not out a whole lot of money. These are skills that we teach in scouting, not knowing it, but they learn these skills just by doing adventures. And that's the really interesting key to scouting. Hey, before we go any further, I want to personally invite you to come to the Campfire Chat. This is a live meeting. It happens on the first Sunday of each month, and it starts at 9 p.m. That's Eastern Time. And of course, I want to personally thank all of the members of the Patreon. They help support what we do here. In addition to that, we also have memberships available right here on this channel. Hit the join button and find out more information. There's a lot of nice little perks that you get for being a member and helping support what we do here. And one of those things is being recognized on our channel. So here's the list of all of the supporters of the channel. Decision making. This is something that comes up in a young person's life within scouting. Okay, that we're dealing with teenagers as far as our scouts, and being able to make a decision based on the facts is so critical that I don't know of anything else that does this. Okay, scouting is the only place that literally thinks about how to come to a decision. This is a critical skill. And we do it so easily through planning activities. The youth need to be directly involved in the planning, okay? They need to decide, which trailer they're going to take, what gear they're going to have. That should not be an adult decision. That should be a youth position where they're going to work through all of that, making those decisions. So being able to think ahead, and a lot of youth have a problem with that at the beginning. They can learn, but they thinking ahead of what they're going to need. Are they going to need camp stoves? Okay, they decide, yes, we need camp stoves. Well, what do you need them for? Oh, camping equipment such as pots and pans so you can cook food. Oh, the one thing next to that, and make sure that you bring all the stuff like gas. Do we have gas in the tanks so they can be hooked up to the stoves? Okay. These are decisions. Being able to make a decision as a youth is difficult. But in scouting, it becomes a natural because these are opportunities. They want to have fun. They want to do this adventure. And that's the key. By the desire of wanting to do the adventure, they have to make decisions. That's the learning part of it. They didn't know that. No one knows that. They want to go on a great camp out. But you got to think of all the other things that go with that. And that's the key. That's the key. That's what we do. We, as the adult leaders, sit there as mentors and coaches and help those youth make decisions. And from that, the youth can actually assign responsibilities. Different patrols might have a grub master. That's a big deal because they got to go and take the menu from the meeting and being able to go shop for the food and be able to have everything they need so they can make that food and so on. It's huge. It's a learning experience, but it's an adventure. That's the key. Adventure comes first, learning comes with it. That's the neat thing about all of those problem-solving capabilities. Now, with decision making, you also have timeliness. You can't decide on camp stoves after you're already back from the camp out. Okay, you got to think about it ahead of time. The beginning, middle, and end is a big deal with a lot of youth. They don't have the ability to really put that together. Now, from an adult standpoint, we can't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. But from a youth standpoint, they don't get the beginning, middle, and end. Which one starts? Which is the first one? They may not know. We hope that by the time they're in a leadership position, they got a good grasp on that and are able to timely plan out things and be able to disperse or be able to get those tasks down so they can hand them out and do that responsibly. Those are skills. And by doing that big adventure, you got to do all the other management of how to get there. That's the goal. And how do you get there? That's the learning part of it. Okay? Fail comes with it. Okay? That's your first attempt in learning. It's an acronym. Okay? Always remember that. Servant leadership. A lot of scout leaders talk about it. And they may even claim that they're a servant leader. When you do that, you're not really a servant leader if you think about it. A servant leader is somebody who's in the background. They're doing the work for the group, for them to succeed. And that's the one thing that a lot of people miss out on as far as the servant leadership concept. They are able, that leader in the background, if they do it right and they are truly a servant leader, the whole group is going to claim, we did it, yay! They won't even mention the actual leader. But that's the beautiful thing about servant leadership, is that it is so successful and it really brings everyone back for more. So that's the key to see a servant leadership. If they yell, "Oh, it's because of our patrol leader, yay!" Is that servant leadership? That's the key. If they all bought into that project, they all have a part of that project, they're all their own managers in their own minds, being managed from behind, that's the thing. That's where the servant leadership comes in, because that servant leader can jump in. If the floors didn't get mopped or they didn't get mopped right, who do you think is going to fix that? The servant leadership. That's the servant leader who's going to mop that floor. They know how. They've done it many times. That's the thing. They are the ones working in the background. So servant leadership comes in, and that is a huge thing in management. If you're in HR and you're looking to get somebody that is going to be a leader, a manager, servant leadership is very important. But it's always come from within the company, because you have to have the ability. The ones that know how to do the certain task, they're the perfect ones. If they have the skill base to be that servant leader, that's perfect. That's who you want. That's who you want to put in charge of that team. That will produce, and that's the key, is that servant leadership actually is able to delegate by action. That's a wonderful thing, and it comes through a lot, and that's an amazing thing about servant leadership. Conflict resolution. Now, this is something that we do naturally in scouting. No matter what the adventure is, there's always going to be some kind of conflict. That conflict can be distracting as far as being able to reach that goal. And that's one of those things. Sometimes the conflicts can be external and they could be internal. And we have to be able to understand those things. We teach that skill inherently in scouting. Okay? We do. And that's one of those beautiful things. When an employer understands this person has gone through management training as a teenager in scouting, that is huge. And I believe that the skills we teach in scouting can be used, to conflict resolution. This can help in handling any kinds of disagreement or being able to find a compromise that both can agree on. This can be something that you can work out. Scouts do it all the time. In a patrol, in a troop, they do it all the time. They even do it in Cub Scouts. Think about it. If you've got a wolf den and they're working together for a common goal to make sure they can go play a game they love, this is something that they want to do. To see that everybody is compromising and negotiating and working together. That's something we teach as a character in character building with Cub Scouts. In a troop, it's a natural. With a patrol, they want to succeed, just like all the other patrols. And that's the wonderful thing. And they have the ability to do so. That's the conflict resolution that they actually put into action. Now, working through difficulties can be a challenge. And we did do a video on conflicts that happen with every scout unit. Please check it out. It's right up there. And that way you can get more informed on how to handle conflicts. They happen. Every single unit has conflicts. They always do. That's something that I highly recommend. Time management and planning is a natural for most patrols. Most scouts can kind of understand that. There is this issue with beginning, middle, and end, and beginning with the end in mind, so you can make it through the middle. That's a huge thing for a lot of scouts. and we do this. This is something we've done a lot. And if you want to go on a huge canoe trip down a really incredible river through some of the best scenery in the United States, that's a huge adventure. There are so many things that need to be planned out before you even get in the canoe. Okay? You gotta be able to get all those things done. And we rely on young people learning that. And they get their information from you. You are their mentor. You are their coach. You say, look, you need to be thinking about this. You need to have this. You maybe, what do you think you're going to need for that trip? What are you going to do for this? What are you going to do for that? This is stuff that we do. Then they learn. And when they learn this skill, this is a huge skill. Being able to plan ahead for a teenager, that's a huge thing. They're not going to be a teen forever. It's a very short amount of time. That's the thing. Once they're a young adult, they have to make some serious decisions. Career, family, that all those things are coming. And if they're not prepared, be prepared is our motto. That is a thing. That we need to have them to have these skills. Confidence through experience. So important. If they don't have the experience, they don't have that opportunity, they're not going to build that confidence. So many times they get the leadership. That's the main thing. They will start with that leadership, but then they need to be mentored. They need to be coached. They need to be challenged with a bunch of questions. Open-ended questions so they think about what they're doing. That leadership is a huge thing. But sometimes, no matter how you coach them, no matter what advice and what you do, there's a failure. And fail, like I've said for a long time, is your first attempt in learning. That's huge. That's an acronym. Okay? Write that down. So failed is not a bad thing. It's just your first time. Okay? Think about it that way. But that's the interesting thing. From that failure comes learning. Experience comes from the failure. We've said it many times. If you fail, you learn. If you win, you don't learn. You don't learn anything new. You've learned how to do it. You already know. You don't learn anything new. When you win, when you fail, you learn. I should have done that. I should have worked on this part. Or I should have delegated better instead of overwhelming myself. That's the thing about fail. You learn more from the failure than the win. It's true. And at that point, you do it again. And you do it again and again and again. And it just, that win starts building up, one after another. And you've got somebody that's capable, that knows how to do something, that can do that skill well. That's the thing. You want that. That's the only way you're going to get to that big adventure. That's the key. And that skill lasts a lifetime. That's the wonderful thing. All of your management skills, they take it with them. They don't put it in a bottle and throw it away. They take it with them. It becomes who they are. Core values go with them. That becomes who they are. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. We do a lot for our scouts. Keep up the great hard work that you do all the time. Please keep it up. We're building a better America one scout at a time, and these are skills that they take with them. So critical that we do this. So if you have a chance, I did a video about communications. It's a two-parter. It's not too long, but the first one is right there. Get started on that. Make notes. Till next time, I'll see you on the trail.